Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. The Witch and the Beast won this month's poll, and I have to say it was another wonderfully timely choice. Obviously the review's coming out a little late on your end, but this was a perfect anime to watch for the lead up to Halloween. My immediate reaction is to say it felt like Soul Eater's slightly older, edgier cousin, and I mean that in the most loving way possible. This story introduces us to a pair working for the Order of Magical Resonance, an organization that employs magic users to deal with magic-related crimes around the world. Ashraf is a polite but mysterious mage who uses crows as his familiars and has a wide range of knowledge of all things magic-related. His partner Guido is an equally mysterious but aggressive young woman who prefers to speak with her fists first. Their partnership may seem a little tense at first, but they're actually pretty comfortable with each other and have found a dynamic that works for them. Guido is only working with the Order because she was cursed by a witch, and going on these missions is her best bet of tracking her down. They establish right away that there are two ways to break a witch's curse. The first is to earn the witch's forgiveness and convince her to take it back herself, and the second is a kiss from your true love. This show's tone is on the dark and gritty side overall, so it honestly took me a minute to realize they weren't being sarcastic about this one. In any case, Guido's temperament makes both avenues seem pretty unlikely, but at the end of the first mission we see, Ashraf reveals that there's a third way to break a witch's curse, by stealing a kiss from a witch. Which I have to say, genuinely made me laugh when that reveal happened. It just felt so out of left field. I was prepared for some kind of ritual, or maybe the death of the witch who cast it. Guido had already shown off some of her super strength and regenerative abilities. She was clearly not the ordinary human she appeared to be, so even though the witches were shown to be insanely powerful, that option was looking slightly more plausible. But now that I've reached the end, I also want to praise this series for not overusing Option 3. It never started to feel like a fan service gimmick, which I did appreciate. Frankly, kissing the witch wasn't necessary for all of their cases, because what that first episode's kiss revealed was that Guido's human-like body is the curse. That stolen kiss temporarily restored her to her true form. The demon-like creature Ashraf carries around in the coffin on his back. Sometimes you gotta love a minor reveal that only deepens the bigger mystery, but we'll get back to that later. Despite having some good, satisfyingly high-stakes twists and turns, this series isn't super fast-paced. There are only 12 episodes, and each case is usually split into at least 2 parts. Thanks to the narrator lesson segments at the beginning, it's also pretty clear from the start that each case is meant to teach you something, to highlight an aspect of this world and the types of creatures and magic used within it. I don't have any complaints about this type of storytelling. In hindsight, it does make something that caught me kind of off guard at the end feel pretty obvious. I was feeling a little betrayed around the time I reached episode 11. It brought me back to another anime I reviewed earlier this year, another one that would have been a good pick for a Halloween watch actually. It was called Beautiful Bones, and it centered around an osteologist and her young assistant using their forensic knowledge to help solve murder mysteries they kept stumbling into around town. The catch was that they discover near the end that all of the cases we'd seen so far may have been connected by the work of a serial killer, and sorry to spoil the disappointment, but instead of using the time to at least try to wrap up the story, Beautiful Bones spends its final episode on a flashback to how its 2 main characters met. To bring it back around, in episode 10 we have our first run-in with the witch who cursed Guido. After a pretty brutal defeat, episode 11 starts the 2-parter case that brings us back to when Ashraf and Guido first teamed up. At the time, I couldn't believe I was about to get cheated out of an ending in the exact same way for a second time this year. In hindsight, the series feels like such an introductory season. Beautiful Bones came out 10 years ago now. The Witch and the Beast only aired at the start of 2024. Now I'd probably compare it more to Heavenly Delusion, another show I didn't realize was only a first season, but more importantly, they're both new enough that it's still reasonable to hope there'll be another season announced soon. This show better get a second season. I don't have time to pick up another manga series, but I'm definitely invested enough that I need to know where this story goes, one way or another. I'm so attached to the mysteries and this world, and I've grown pretty fond of our main characters as well. I realize I skipped from the beginning straight to the end. That's often the case for me when the series has any type of detective element to it, because it's usually not the little details of each mission that really matter when you're summing things up for a review, but the big picture things. And in this show's case, even the bigger themes they introduce still just feel like introductions. As you could probably guess, almost all of their cases revolve around or address revenge in some way, mirroring Guido's quest for revenge, but it's really too early to tell what message they're trying to send about that, because almost all of the characters acknowledge that enacting their revenge isn't going to solve all their problems, isn't even necessarily going to make them feel any better, but I also don't recall a single character who chose not to take that revenge when given the chance. It's an interesting start to that theme, to say the least. I hope it all comes together to be something meaningful in the end. They also introduce, from the very beginning, the idea of prejudice against witches, and I have to say I don't think that one gets off to a particularly strong start, as the witch in the first episode does turn out to be manipulating the townspeople, but a good number of the other witches we meet throughout the series are innocent, just trying to go about their daily lives, being framed for things when the locals find out there's a witch in town. Ashraf's main goal, in fact, seems to be finding these targeted, innocent witches and bringing them in so the Order can protect them, and presumably borrow their power in return. Which brings us right back around to all the mysteries at the end. There's still so much we don't know. What is Ashraf's backstory? Where does he come from? Where did he learn magic? How did he get involved with the Order, and what really motivates him? What exactly is Guido, and what's her history with the witch who cursed her? What was really the point of the curse? They drop a ton of lore in the last 5 minutes of the final episode, setting up the next act. Some of it is just information about the world that I felt we really could have gotten sooner, but Ashraf also drops the bomb that the stealing a kiss from a witch method will always be temporary. I'd assumed that once they found the right witch, she'd be freed for good. Only the first two methods are permanent, and Angela doesn't seem like the type who can be persuaded or reasoned with. At the start, I would have thought the possibility of Guido falling in love was ridiculous, but they start introducing near the end that Ashraf started to really care for her, and she has started to soften up a bit in their time together. And you know, they never say it has to be a romantic love. There are ways I could see this working, but of course, we need to get more of the story first. This is the type of anime that I'm a little hesitant to recommend. On an enjoyment level, absolutely, but I can't leave you without the warning that it is incomplete. All I can say is I've got my fingers crossed for good news on this series soon. Thank you for watching.